Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new IDoWorkHereLady stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, I Work Here. Yeah, on breaking and entering. Happened to me a few years back. I worked as a junior facility manager at one of the office and conference buildings of our church. I often ran late shifts. Preparing for the next day, moving a couple hundred chairs is best done after regular office hours, closing down lights, windows, etc., and then secure the building for the night. Since I was just in facility management and at late shifts nobody was there anyway, I usually just wore some black army clothes to work since they are comfortable and robust, as well as army boots, again, comfy and robust, and an old field cap. You won't believe the kind of dirt you'll find atop some office cabinets and ceiling lamps. There were multiple entries I had to close down at night, and take care nobody was left in the building. Finally, I'd make my last round around the building, testing if every door was really locked, since sometimes the locking mechanism wouldn't snap properly. Unfortunately, the building was at the city center, between the town hall and a police station, so it was just a matter of time before I got to know some of my city's finest. So two officers are leaving their car, when they see some guy in old army clothes pulling vigorously at the doors of the office across the street, and feel like investigating. Officer 1, good evening, might I ask what we are doing here? Me, a bit annoyed, my job, and I'd like to be gone in about 5 minutes, so? Yeah, after a exhausting day I just wanted to get home and didn't feel like being delayed by anyone. Also, Europe, so I had no worry about the cops using excessive force or being a bit brash to them. Of course, in hindsight this was not the best possible answer. Officer 2, well, we would appreciate it if you'd refrain from doing your work in front of our police station. Me, very much missing what the police officer is getting at, thinking this to be some kind of harassment, whilst pulling again at the door, which indeed opens. Well, I am sorry to hear that. I'll be away as soon as I have taken care of this. At that moment I reached for my pocket to get the keys, and found myself harshly interrupted, hands where we can see them. Step away from the door. Me, freezing in mid-air, finally realizing the situation. Now I get it, sorry, I do work here. Seems like my looks weren't too convincing. Officer 1, I don't think so. Are you daft? We are literally standing right beside you. The sheer audacity. At least we just have to cross the street, he says while grabbing my arm and shaking his head. Me, no sir, I can't, I do indeed work here and got to. Officer 2, yeah, your work looks quite like breaking and entering, so if you'd just to come with us. By now I was annoyed, pissed and rather desperate. It was past my shift, and I couldn't leave with two open doors, the last one I would lock on my way out, and this late they might just keep me overnight at the station and check out my testimonial the next morning. Me, so you are about to just leave this door unlocked and open for everyone else to walk in? Officer 1 to Officer 2, raising an eyebrow, that's right, would you go around to the main entrance and call their facility management? Officer 2 walks away, and sure, about a minute later my work phone starts ringing. Officer 1, take your phone, slowly, and turn it off. By then Officer 2 returns, cell phone on his ear, trying to reach anyone, as I take mine and end the call. Officer 2, hung up, I try again. Some seconds later my cell starts ringing again. Me, might I? Officer 1, totally oblivious, just gives me an annoyed nod. He is clearly too occupied by his colleague trying to get someone on the line, so we finally could leave, and doesn't put one and one together. Me, accepting the call, good evening officer, might I finally lock the damn door as I was about to do before you interrupted me? They were rather friendly after that, and even asked me if I'd like a ride home, since the whole thing delayed me past the last metro train. In the end they were quite nice guys, and as annoyed as I was, for they themselves were just about to turn in when they spotted me. We had a good laugh afterwards. The next one is titled, Man Wants to Have Me Thrown Out of My Own Store. So this is an old story from years ago, so it's the best I can remember. I was working in a liquor store and my co-worker went for a smoke break, and since the store was empty I joined her to get some fresh air. Our store didn't have any official uniforms, but I tried to look somewhat professional with polo shirts and such. While sitting there we see a customer approach and I tell CW she can finish her smoke. The customer walks up to the exit door with a big red sign that says exit only on it and is confused that there is no handle. I tell him wrong door, but he just looks at me and tries again. As I walk through the entrance he follows me and grabs a six-pack. I ask him if he needs help with anything and he replies that I can't bother him in here or I'll be thrown out. A bit confused I said okay and stood behind my till. At that moment he realized that I was an employee. He pays for his beer and apologized. Apparently he thought I was a panhandler and was just ignoring everything I said cause he thought I was asking for money. After he walked out I went back outside to join CW and tell her what happened and she just started to laugh and make jokes about how oblivious some people can be. The next one is titled, I work security, so this has happened before but not to this extent. Me equals me CK equals Karen LK equals little kid BK equals big kid J equals coworker. I worked in a haunted corn maze this year. Basically, we dress up and scare anyone who walks through. It was all virus safe and approved. All workers have to wear a mask, obviously, and dress up as something scary. I was dressed up as a little dead girl but I got called a doll. Not the point. It was one of our slow nights, Wednesday or Thursday, and it was like the last 30 minutes. Now I was tired, hungry, sweaty and dirty as hell as I crawl on the ground and just wanted to get home. I heard someone walking towards my area and hid like I normally did. Now mind you, no one is supposed to hide in the corn, pick up the corn and especially not throw the corn. Only the workers are allowed to hide. We aren't even allowed to walk through the corn to get out, we have to follow the paths. So I hid in the corn and I heard corn being ripped from a stalk, you know the sound after hearing it constantly from kids and other workers taking the low-hanging ones off. I immediately stepped out, ready to be blunt with the person, and see a woman with 4 kids. The youngest was probably 5 and the oldest was probably 16, 17 something like that. Me, you can't touch the corn. Whatever you have put down and continue on the path. If you're CK, don't tell my child what to do. Little girl BK, sorry we didn't know. She proceeds to remove corn from LK hands. CK, don't listen to her. She's just a stupid kid. I'm taking this home to cook. Proceeds to stuff corn into purse and starts walking over dragging one of the other kids with her. Me, ma'am, first off you can't take corn from the maze and second off it's not gonna taste. CK, if you don't get out of my face I will call the cops on you for harassing me and my children. Me, listen lady I've tried being nice, remove the corn from your purse or I'll have security escort you out. She then pushes me, I'm in a dress in the cold, do that fall hurt, and walks away almighty like. BK helped me up and apologized profusely for his mum before walking over and trying to get the corn from her purse. I had enough when I saw her smack his head and scream at him. I immediately cut through the corn, I didn't care ATM, and headed to my coworker's area. That day I didn't bring my whistle, given to us in case of emergencies, so I asked him to follow her out the corn maze. We are supposed to follow suspicious people like kids constantly going into the corn, people we think are drunk or kids we noticed asking a little strange. Like they were carrying something they should be or they were gonna screw in the corn maze. It's a weird area I live in. So Jay followed her out of the corn maze, I think, so I was fine with it. Had her warning given and then she would be off on her merry way. Nope, the siren rang for us to get out and pack up our stuff, so I followed one of the paths I knew out and was instantly bombarded. I got pulled aside by security as CK was screaming and crying about how a child was harassing her and her angels and she had a creepy pedophilic man follow her out and she's never so unsafe in her life and she wanted me arrested for causing trauma to her kids. Last bit my friend heard her crying her off about while I was being spoken to, so security asked me what happened. They knew me as the weird worker who would scream Disney lyrics as she walked in to get ready or show up randomly in a onesie, and asked who escorted her out and blah blah. Me, I asked her kids not to touch the corn, she didn't listen and even started packing corn into her purse to eat later. Security gave a gross look, this corn is not meant for human consumption. BK, please don't listen to my mum. She's just being hysterical again. Nothing like that happened except the creepy guy part. I don't know if he's a worker or not, but LK did rip corn from a cornstalk and she was just doing her job. LK, mommy told me to so I can have some since it's free. CK is away from us currently crying into the owner's sweater. Jay finally walked out of the corn maze, probably helping the other guards take out trash, and tilts his head confused. Jay was wearing a clown mask and was a chainsaw guy who ran after people with a chainsaw that had no chain. BK, that's the dude. Me, oh I asked him to follow y'all out. I didn't feel safe following y'all out because of your mother, and I wanted to make sure y'all didn't do anything like that again. Jay walks over and looks at me confused. Jay usually worked with me, so I could tell his facial features by the slight movements of his body. OMG. H is the one who stalked me and my children. He probably some pervert who walks around here to kidnap little kids like the disgusted 30-year-old man he is. Now this woman had annoyed me to the point I wanted to hit her, but I started dying laughing. Like to the point I couldn't breathe. Why? Jay was a 16-year-old kid whose mum was a friend of the owners and several older workers. CK was losing her mind, confused on why I was laughing and why the sheriffs weren't arresting me and taking to Rikers Island. Security, Jay? He is a worker here. And he is 16 now. She is going crazy about how they hire human traffickers here and that we were all in it, and they were lying until Jay removed his mask and face mask to show how young her looked. I had gotten to the point where I was using my dress to wipe off my makeup because I was feeling gross. CK was basically standing around staring at all of us, confused on why nobody was listening to her, and I grinned. Me, well, as I stated earlier, ma'am, please remove all corn in your possession or I will have security escort you out. Or maybe your cup of tea is a sheriff. CK is now banned from the corn maze premise for as long as I work there, and I intend on working there for a long time. The next one is titled, Lady Thought I Was Child Labor. A little background info. I am 14M and this happened in July on my grandparents' farm. He is 73 and my grandma is 72. So during quarantine my grandparents needed help on their farm store because they did not want to catch virus, so they stopped agriculture interns from the school working there. So me bored because they cancelled sports and wanting to get out of the house, I holed up at my grandparents. Enough background, so here it is. I was doing chores near the store and a 19 to 20-year-old woman came to buy some honey, so I walked over to the store and the conversation follows. Me, good morning, what can I do for? Pause, my bad, I do not have a shirt on, let me run back to my house to get one. Her, oh no, it is fine, I saw you outside working, it's fine. Me, is there anything you need other than honey? Her, do you work here? Me, yes, ma'am I do, I am a grandchild. Her, that is illegal, you cannot be working here. Me, getting this question a lot. This is something I do during the summer. Would you like to see my grandparents? Her, yes, I radio my grandma, she said she was on her way. GM, I am here. Her, yes, do you use him as free labor? With a no at all tone. GM, no, he is my grandson, do you need a bottle of brandy or anything? Her, I am calling the cops, you are lying, you only teach him a few responses in English, he is definitely Mexican. I was shocked because I am not Mexican, I just have a tan for field work and practice in the NC heat. If you wear a shirt you are destined to get a heat stroke. Her, in Spanish, I can help you. Me, in Spanish because I take it as a class, can you please leave store? I am not Mexican and you already paid for the honey, so there is really no reason to stay here. Her, see, he is Mexican. Me, I am not Mexican, I am Southern American, and if you say anything again I will call to cops to remove you from the store. Her, expect the cops and child services to be here soon. They did not come and she left without the honey. Turns out it was a daughter of a regular that comes here a lot and she apologized about her behavior. My grandma was aggravated at me for my yelling, but she understood why because we are in an area with a lot of white people. The next one is titled, Are you sure you are my teacher? I started teaching very young and some people in my country doubt young teachers, so have a lot I do work here lady stories, but this one is actually cute. I usually worked with kids older than 8 years old at a languages school, but my boss offered me the young kids class and I accepted. So first day and I'm welcoming the kids by the door when the following conversation happened. 4Y, oh, are you my teacher? Me, yes, I am. 4Y, oh, really? Me, yes, my name is Teo. 4Y, oh, looks at me suspiciously and runs back to his mum. His mum reassures him. Mum, yes, she is your teacher and she is very happy because you are in her class. 4Y, oh, but she's not old. Mum, apologizes and tells me that she is sure I'll be a great teacher. Me, points at a wall, look, those pictures are from last year's grown-ups class and I'm in the pictures because I'm the teacher. 4Y, oh, you look pretty, and walks to the classroom. The next one is titled, I met you earlier because I do work here. This was a couple of days ago when I was working at our state election issuing voting ballots. I can understand why this man thought I was a voter, but we met hours earlier prior to voting booth being opened. Lol. My supervisor sent me off for a morning tea break, so I removed my smock and name tag to go enjoy some coffee. As I started walking back in, this other worker asked what electorate I was voting in. Which electorate are you voting? I met you earlier, I laughed. Yes. What electorate are you voting? I work here. Just had my break and I'm coming back in. We met earlier, I giggled. OMG. So sorry. He laughed. I told him it was okay and mentioned I took off my smock, so maybe that made it confusing. We had a good laugh about his mistake. At least our cheery attitudes for the rest of the day helped make the voters more relaxed. The next one is titled, From Customer to Staff, All in a Day. The response to my earlier post have been so encouraging that I'm tempted to post another anecdote from the time I jumped to the other side of the counter. Background: I was between jobs for some time and a friend suggested that I help him out in his shop till the time I find a job. He owned a toy shop and also did event management for children's birthday parties. To be fair, he only expected me to handle the event management part of it, mainly speaking to customers, understanding their ideas and then designing a package for them that met their budget. I worked with him for a year or so and managed not only the event management part of it, but on days of heavy rush I would also work as one of the salespersons to take the load off of the sales team. When I used to work there, we had devised a system whereby PPL who made bulk purchases or booked birthday events with us, would be given special discounts on their purchases. We would manually make a note of their purchases, work out the discounted amount on certain big-ticket items and manually enter the pricing while scanning them for billing. This was slightly time-consuming, but it ensured customer loyalty. The incident: this was a couple of years after I had stopped working at this place. This was a couple of weeks before Christmas. I had gone to the shop to pick up gifts for my nephews and nieces. When I was done shopping, I saw there was a huge rush at the billing counter and the person manning the counter was totally swamped. There was no one taking care of our regular customers and they were waiting in line with the rest. I spoke to my friend and offered to help just this one time. I set up a second counter and asked one of the salespersons to direct the big customers to me. While I was shopping, a couple of Karens had been shadowing me and one of them had even snatched a dollhouse I wanted to buy for my niece just as I was reaching for it. When I went behind the counter to help with the billing, the look on their faces was priceless. The next one is titled, You Selling Crack? Sir, I work here. This happened fairly recently. Me and my colleagues got a good laugh out of it. I'm on mobile, so sorry for any spelling mistakes. Cast: me, elevator guy, e.g. girlfriend, GF. I just started a new job in a hotel and I absolutely love it. I walked in the other day and was waiting for the lift. There were two other people there, e.g. and GF. The elevator comes down and I was going to wait for the next one because of the whole virus thing. GF: do you want to come in the lift too? Me: okay, if you're sure. I get on and EG is on the phone to his mate, EG, dude, this rock chic just got on the lift. She got patches on her jacket and a neck tattoo. GF: what's the tattoo? I show her and they both seem pretty impressed. EG: still on the phone, mate, this girl is like proper rock chic. Covered in tattoos. Yeah, I'm gonna ask her. He drops his phone slightly to look at me, EG: hey, you got any crack or heroin? Me: nah, sorry mate, all I got is tramadol. I take it for my sciatica. It's prescription drug, but on the street it's used as a recreational drug, so I guess it's pretty sought after because it's hard to get. GF: clearly impressed. Wow. EG: back on the phone to his mate, dude, she has tramadol. GF: do you work here? Me: yes, I'm a receptionist. GF laughed awkwardly and EG had the look of pure horror on his face. We got to the floor I needed and I left. I turned around and said, see you later. I have never seen anyone look so mortified in my life. I told my manager and colleagues what happened and we all laughed. I checked to see what room they were staying in and told my boss I would keep an eye on them. We generally don't have a problem with what goes on in our hotel rooms provided the guests aren't causing disruption or damage to the hotel. They went to their room and didn't leave till morning. They were polite enough guests and didn't cause any issues, so we didn't have a problem. I just thought THW whole thing was pretty funny, especially because I look so different and professional when wearing my uniform. The next one is entitled Mother-to-be. I have only just discovered this sub. I was 27 when I married my now husband and 28 when I had my son, and had gone to the hospital for a glucose tolerance test. Anyone who has had them knows they take a few hours, and anyone that have visited a UK hospital knows the appointments never run to time. So I'd already downed my disgusting glass of flat Coke and was waiting the required hour or two before my next blood test when in walked a Karen. She must have been early 40s or had a very hard paper round, and looked to be maybe 5 months pregnant. Showing enough to be recognizably pregnant, but not so much people would ask when you're due for fear of it being just bloat. She was told the clinic was running around 40 minutes late and to take a seat. Every 5 minutes she would trot back to the desk and ask how much longer. After 20 minutes or so she got up and demanded the secretary move her to the front of the queue because she is so tired and just wants to put her feet up because it's so hard being pregnant. Cue a dozen women visibly rolling their eyes as they sat there with swollen ankles, slip-on shoes because they can't see their feet, and papers in their hand to book their induction. After another 10 minutes or so of frequent complaining to the secretary, she decided it was the perfect time for a rant, so she started being rude to everyone in the waiting room. She clearly got IVF because no one would sleep with her. Is she pregnant or just fat? Why do I have to sit here with these whores that get themselves knocked up? Then she turned to me. And there's another fine example of the way this country is going. Another slut teenager sat on her own because whatever drip she ducked doesn't want to be stuck with crap tea nappies and a loose witch though he was just getting a cheeky shag from. I openly laughed, and turned my book around a bit to show my wedding and engagement rings, then pointedly looked at her bare ring finger that clearly hadn't had a band on any time recently. I'd love to say it shut her up, but it just made her double down on everyone else, unfortunately, until she was asked to leave the clinic. The next one is titled, Wife ID'd for coffee because she is too young for caffeine. Obligatory. Not my story, but my wife's. My wife and I are both mid-20s, and while I look my age, my wife looks much younger, like 13 without makeup. Here are a few stories about her looking young. Story 1, getting ID'd for coffee. My wife and her mum were out one day running errands when they decided to get some coffee and sit and relax in a local coffee shop. They both go to order, and when my wife orders a black coffee, the barista laughs and says something like, "That's cute." My wife and Mill thought it was kind of weird and thought the bill was really cheap too, but they moved down the line to the drink pickup area and waited for their beverages. About 5 minutes after my Mill received her coffee, my wife went up to ask where her black coffee was. The barista gave her a confused look and said, "Sweetie, you are much too young to have caffeine." Then, looking at my Mill, said, "You really shouldn't be letting a child drink coffee with caffeine in it. It's really bad for them." Finally understanding what was happening, my wife says, "I am 24. At the same time my Mill says, "She is a grown-ass woman. She can drink whatever she wants." The barista was very confused and asked to see my wife's ID to prove it, which my wife had to go back outside to the car to retrieve. The barista was still very confused when she saw the ID and apologized profusely, offering the coffee on the house. Story 2, Jehovah's Witnesses think I am my wife's dad. Some backstory: I often work from home, and when I do, I answer the door when people knock. Anyways, there are some Jehovah's Witnesses that stopped by every couple of months to say hello and try to get us to sign up for their church, religion, events. I am always kind and mention that I am not interested as I am not a religious person, but we all got to know each other on a first-name basis. I think they also just like to stop by to see my dogs. Anyways, story time. My wife was working from home one day when she got a knock on the door and went to see who it was. It was the neighborhood Jehovah's Witnesses. When she opened the door, they said, "Hello, is your father home?" To which my wife replied, "My father doesn't live here, this is my house." The Jehovah's Witnesses were a little confused by this and asked again, "No, is your father here today?" "Sup 3R man? He is usually here at this time." To which my wife responded, "Sup 3R man is my husband, and no, he had to work at his office today. Thanks." And she proceeded to shut the door in their face. Apparently I look like a 25-year-old with a 13-year-old daughter, and the Jehovah's Witnesses haven't been back since. Story 3, Costco samples are for adults. My wife and I often shop at Costco, and when we do, they usually hand out food samples to customers. We were walking through the vitamin section when I wandered off to get some lotion and shampoo. Gotta stay fresh and smooth for my 13-year-old looking wife. Meanwhile, the wife walks over to a guy handing out vitamin samples and asks for one. He responds with a, "Sorry, I can't give samples to children without the parents' permission." My wife, used to being seen as much younger than she really is, said, "I am an adult. I am 25, married, have a house, and dogs." The sample guy was immediately apologetic and offered a coupon, which I think he hands out to people anyways, but no biggie, and a sample to my wife. Fortunately, nobody has been excessively rude about her looking young and has always apologized. As a side note, my wife is now pregnant, so I look like a creepy 26-year-old guy that knocked up a teenager, so I've got that going for me.